reciting the Namo Tassa, the three refuges, for those who like to do that. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So welcome, friends, to this Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So I hope you all got the mailing I sent out with the attachment and the reading for this week, with continuation in the book Masterful Teachings of Gautama Buddha. Now, we've been in the previous week, talking about the way to use the Dhamma wisely and developing, the factors of the mind. And so this week, the two suttas we're going to cover. The first one is just a very short one. It's about the true goal of the practice. In other words, the purpose of the practice of the Dhamma, or the meditative life, does not consist in just, getting gains or fame or honor, or just in gaining morality and becoming a normal, good citizen, or developing some kind of concentration to get some kind of psychic powers and so on. But to gain the actual true path to the liberating the mind from greed, hatred, and delusion. So anyway, this first short sutra, it's sort of the simile of the heartwood, called the simile of the heartwood. That means the inner heartwood of a tree. And that unshakable deliverance of the heart, that indeed is the goal of living the spiritual life. That's its essence, or the pith. That is its end. And so there's a simile of a man going into the forest with an axe, looking for and aiming to get the heartwood, or the very inner part of the tree. But he passes, and he comes to the tree, he passes by the softwood, he passes by the bark, passes by the shoots, and, well, actually, let me go back. I only took out part of the sutra. So a man coming to the heartwood, he comes to the tree, and he sees the leaves and maybe some flowers, and he cuts those off, thinking that is the pith or the heartwood. And another man comes by, and he doesn't pick the flowers or the leaves, but he cuts off some branches, thinking that is the heart. Then another man comes by, and he he leaves the flowers, leaves, and branches, and he takes the outer bark, thinking that is the heartwood. And then another man comes by and leaves all of those other things, and he finally gets to the inner bark and takes that away, thinking that's the heartwood. But then another man comes and bypasses all those and goes right to the center of the tree and gets out the real hardest, densest heartwood of the tree. So a person that is living, looking for the heartwood of the Dhamma, they're not satisfied with just gaining morality or even concentration, gaining what the normal person says, some peace of mind or overcoming their negative habits. They're not satisfied with that, because with each little progress you make in meditation, more of the mind is revealed and more deeper levels of tranquility and happiness are experienced. And if you just stop at the outer parts of that, the outer experiences, the superficial experiences of seeing some inner light or some blissful feelings, then you're gonna miss a lot. But that's what a lot of people do. They get contented with the meditation. They don't want to sacrifice too much, so they get content with just some feel-good states and so on, which is no harm. But anyway, there's much more beautiful and blissful states of consciousness and awareness to reach. So it's so getting to the very heartwood, which are the stages of actual liberation, the actual transformation of the consciousness from a more dominant, ego-centered I, me, mine level to a more kind of expansive level in which the sense of the ego, even though in the beginning it still might be there a little bit, but it's not so hard and rigid as it is in the previous ordinary states of mind, and that continues to get more refined and deepened, and the state of mental freedom and so on is experienced. So you gradually, as long as you don't get complacent and sort of let your practice just sort of stagnate, then you keep on, persevering and coming to those deeper levels. Okay. So that's the true goal, is the overcoming of all the defilements of the mind, greed, hatred, and delusion, and attaining the state of true mental freedom, or what you could call nibbana, or so on. Okay. So now we're going to go on to the actual path of doing that, and there's a simile called the Relay of Chariots. It's number 24 in the Majjhima Nikaya, I believe. 24 in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Relay of Chariots. So it talks about the 7 stages that the mind goes through on its path, on the practice of the Dhamma. Actually, there's even 16 stages, but one of them contains 8 sub-stages. And I'm not going to read the whole sutra, but I just copied and pasted in the attachment part of it. But the whole sutra is longer and has some beginning and endings to it. But basically, it's a conversation between Sariputra and another an arhat who's well versed in the suttas, and he's asking the Sariputta. He said, "Is the holy life lived under the Buddha for the sake of gaining purity of virtue?" That means of purifying one's sila and becoming free from guilt, worry, remorse, and fear, and the suffering results of having broken the precepts. He says, that would be like taking just the outer leaves or branches of the tree, thinking that's the heart. He said, no, that's not that's why we practice, the Dhamma under the Buddha. And that's not, the experience of Nibbana. And so then he says, well, is gaining purity of the mind, is that the goal, the supreme goal of the teaching? And the purity of mind refers to overcoming the 5 hindrances and gaining concentration, but especially the overcoming of the 5 hindrances, as we've talked quite a lot about, the practicing mindfulness and overcoming those 5 hindrances that keep the mind kind of cloudy, and gaining the purity of mind. So that refers to attaining either the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th jhana. And so he's asking, is that why we practice the Dhamma under the Buddha? He says, no, not for this. And then he goes on to say, well, do we practice the Dhamma for overcoming the purity of view? And the purity of view refers to understanding gaining insights. So we have, again, the stage of Sila. We practice Sila in order to be able to gain concentration or the purity of mind, one of those jhanic levels. And that is for gaining the right view. So that's the beginning of insight, the development of insight, especially into the 5 aggregates. So once you attain the level of concentration and the hindrances are weakened, then the mind becomes very clear like a mirror. And you can clearly see that the 5 aggregates of form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness in their impermanent state, how they just arise, last a moment or two, and vanish one after the other in a continuous stream of momentary experiences. Now, if we don't, usually we cling to these experiences, and then it slows that down, and we get carried away by the content of the mind, carried away by our feelings, perceptions, thoughts, ideas, urges, and then creating karma about them. So, but basically the purity of view is seeing, gaining an initial understanding of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, of impermanence, and how these 5 aggregates are operating, basically without any permanent kind of owner or controller to them. So that's called the purity of view, is having a glimpse of impermanent suffering and no self regarding the 5 aggregates. In a nutshell, that's really the kernel or the essence of the purity of view. And that might be gotten, through the initial levels of practicing vipassana meditation, practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness and vipassana meditation. And even though we have a purity of view, there still could be some doubts arise. Doubts about, let's say, especially about the paticca samuppada, and doubts about, perhaps the karma, and about the rebirth, and about, any remaining sort of doubts about whether there is a self. Because, you can get some insights, and and pretty much kind of intellectually understand, oh yes, there's no self, but deeper down in the mind, when you get reach deeper levels of awareness, you can still see there's still some traces of the self there, so you could still remain some doubts. Anyway, so purity of overcoming doubts actually, from the standpoint of the suttas in the Visuddhimagga, that is contemplating the paticca samuppada, contemplating the 12 links of dependent origination in its forward order and in reversed order. So most of you probably have at least heard the 12 links of dependent origination before. I've talked about it quite a number of times in the past. There's plenty of books on that, but if you want to learn more, you can just Google it. Just Google dependent origination or paticca samuppada. I'm not going to go through all of those states now, but that's considered to be, that's actually the Buddha. The Buddha in the second watch of the night, he contemplated this paticca samuppada in its forward and reverse orders just before attaining his ultimate state of enlightenment. So by contemplating those 12 links of dependent origination, one overcomes the doubts, because those lingering doubts can also, be enough to keep the mind from totally letting go, and totally letting go of any remaining little trace of the sense of I, me, or mine, to experience, to get the real full-blown experience of total, egolessness and, understanding illusion. Now, while one is meditating, and especially in the gaining purity of mind, gaining purity of view, and overcoming doubts, people can have some very kind of fantastic experiences, like maybe seeing the inner light in the mind, or the feeling of the body becoming light as a feather, or even parts of the body disappearing, or you could even think you can read somebody's mind, or you might get some experience of some psychic power, and you can get distracted with these things. They become sort of ornaments of the meditation, and people can get distracted and think that they've actually reached enlightenment when they actually have not. And we can see there's a lot of examples, even in the contemporary day, even in the Buddha's day. There are suttas that some monks that thought they were enlightened, and then they had pointed out, and they realized, oh, well, I'm not. And in the same way, even in this day and age, there are people like that too, and there's plenty of examples of whether it's just people being deluded, whether some people think God is talking to them and told them they were enlightened, or the Buddhists might think that some of these jhanas were enlightenment, because they're so deep and powerful that one could be fooled by them, like fool's gold, right? So that next of these, the fifth of those stages of the Relay of Chariots, is understanding what is and what is not the way. And basically it means that the way to enlightenment is not just gaining these type of meditative experiences that you might experience in the jhanas. As I already mentioned, these different having visions, or your mind full of light, or levitating even, some that could happen, or other kind of psychic powers. But understanding that the true way is the development of insight and experiencing the impermanence and unsatisfactory nature and no self nature of the five aggregates. So, and that's when the mind really gets deep in the meditation. And then one begins these 8 insight knowledges. So we've talked about already the 6 of them, plus 8 actually is in 14. And there's some others later. But it's the purification of knowledge and vision of the way. So once you understand what is the way, then you tread that way, which are these 8 stages of insight knowledges, and we've talked about them already. And I've sent out in previous mailings the extracts from those attachments containing discussion of those, and it's also in my books, The Breaking Through the Self-Delusion, and so on. But we're not going to go into those in detail. But basically, it's the knowledge of rise and fall, and the knowledge of just disappearance, and the knowledge of seeing the fear and danger and being attached to the 5 aggregates, and then developing that dispassion and the desire for deliverance, and then the equanimity of formations. But I would take a whole separate Dhamma talk to talk about those right now. So, but those are called the purification by knowledge and vision. And then that leads up to the actual attainment of those stages of liberation, the stage of the Sotapanna, entering the stream, once returning, never returning, and the Arhat path that we've talked quite a lot. So that's called purification by knowledge and vision. So the previous one was purification of knowledge and vision of the way, and it's similar to the Eightfold Path. Now we all know the Noble Eightfold Path. And the last step of the last 3 steps are right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. That also doesn't lead to enlightenment. There's 2 more steps of the Eightfold Path. And this coincides with these insight knowledges. Because the Noble Eightfold Path sort of ends at the 4th jhana, reaching the 4th jhana. And from the 4th jhana, that is where you develop the knowledge and vision of the way, or the last 2 of these knowledges of the knowledge of the way and the purification by knowledge and vision. So all those steps leading up to that point where a person then has these breakthrough moments. And actually the 9th and 10th, there's a 10-fold path. So the Eightfold Path is like you're walking through a great forest or for days and weeks or a desert, and you come to the edge of a cliff and there's nowhere to go except jump off. So reaching the 4th jhana is like that. You come to the edge of the cliff and you can either come back from that or you jump with both feet into the unknown and reaching the stage of liberation. And there's other similes given of that. And I've talked many times, several times about that, about advanced vipassana meditation and so on. Anyway, so that is this sutta of the Relay of Chariots. Or if you can't relate to a chariot, what about Pony Express, right? So you've all studied American history, and know about the Pony Express, how they delivered mail in the old days, in the 1800s. And they'd use a team of, or a horse or a stagecoach, to travel 20 or 30 miles, and they'd change horses and get on another one and keep on traveling. So that is the same way in the practice of the Dhamma. And so, but I would highly recommend reading what I sent out in the attachment, to read the whole sutta. So, and that is reaching the the stages of entering the stream, once returning, never returning, in the state of the arahant, or full liberation, is the true goal of the Buddha's teaching. But again, that practice can take even many lifetimes. But once you get an understanding of the Dhamma, then there's no turning back. After the stage of entering the stream is when you truly sort of overcome any doubts about it, and have that first clear glimpse of the unconditioned, and then that is one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. Okay, now we'll open it up to any questions that any of you may have about that. Looks like there's something in the chat box. Let me see that one first, and I'll get to the yellow hand. Question: the heart is material organ, whereas the body contacts the mind, the order of experience. I don't really see a question in there. When they talk about the heart, really, they're talking about the mind, really. And nama rupa is simply the mind and matter. That means understanding the mind and matter is when a sound touches the ear, then that produces a material vibration, which is the material element, and then you feel it as something painful or pleasant or neutral. Then you perceive it. The memory says, "Oh, that's a door slamming," and then there might be aversion arise. The sankhara is disturbing your meditation, and then the sense of self is there. So that's the nama rupa process. And then you take the reaction to that. That's all you have to understand. Forget about the heart, the physical heart, and so on. All this talk about the physical heart has nothing to do really with the practice of the meditation. So anyway, that's the order of experience. You have to understand physical vibration, the rupa, and then the nama, which is the mental reaction to the physical sensory vibrations of the feeling, perception, volition, and the consciousness. That's the whole practice of the Vipassana meditation, to see how that impermanent process and how there's no self or I in that, especially in the consciousness and so on. Okay, I see a yellow hand here. Michael, you have a question?
Yes, Bhante. I was able to read the two sutras from the Majjhima Nikaya, a master of the course of thought, which Mark Musi really covered for a pamphlet he wrote named Practicing Mindfulness. So replacement, reflecting on results, redirecting your thoughts, and reconstructing. And but he did mention the Buddha, destroying unwholesome thoughts. And also, there is a connectivity between transcendental dependent arising and the ninth and 10th steps of the Noble Eightfold Path. Transcendental meditation, transcendental dependent arising, number 9 is emancipation. And then the Noble Eightfold Step is right knowledge. And in transcendental meditation, transcendental dependent arising, number 10 is liberation. Destruction of the taints, which is the same thing as number 10, right? Liberation. So both of them seem to give the same results. So does it really matter which one we focus on? Either transcendental dependent arising or the Noble 10th-fold path?
Well, they're all connected. The Buddha gave so many different suttas, and he gave them depending on the audience and depending on maybe what certain questions arose and who was there in the audience to understand. He then spoke to that. And so whether it's the regular dependent origination, the 12 links of dependent origination, or it's transcendental dependent origination, which starts with the suffering, and then you get faith, and then you get the gladness springs in the heart, and then you practice concentration. They all basically eventually come to the same point. And there's a number of suttas, that just following Paticca Samuppada by itself, if one could, would be enough to gain enlightenment.
Yes.
Not everyone has the right conditions for that, and so the Noble Eightfold Path is the basic practice, yes, but again, it leads up to the 4th jhana. So at that time, then when you reach the jhanas in concentration, then these other things like these insight knowledges, then they can kick in and take you to the 9th and 10th steps of the Eightfold Path. And those later stages of the transcendental dependent origination.
I really love the fact that you use the analogy of jumping off a cliff, because when we talked about Vitali, I think 2 weeks ago, when Maya was looking for his consciousness and there was no consciousness there. We're not talking about I consciousness, any of the 6 consciousness. There was nothing there that remained for him to generate another life. And at that point, we blow out the fuel. At that point, we jump. Our life takes us, if we're not here, we're somewhere else, and we have no idea where it is, but we take that leap. So I love the fact that you mentioned it like that. That has a lot of meaning to me now. We practice, we reach the stage, and then once that fuel is gone, boom, it's a leap of faith, and we're gone.
Now I talked about these insight knowledges, the 8 insight knowledges, and that's really the last stage of that practice. And there's actually the 9 and 10 steps. There's another one after the equanimity of formations. There's what is called change of lineage.
Yes.
And
yeah, I've read those.
No, there's the conformity knowledge and change of lineage. This is the actual practice of jumping off the cliff.
Oh, I see.
And there's the simile given of a person, let's say, comes to a wide river and he wants to cross the river, but there's no raft or anything there, but he sees a vine, a long vine hanging from the tree. And so he gets an idea, I'll go back up the bank and I'll run down the bank and I'll grab that vine, and the vine will swing out across the river. And when it gets over the other bank, he lets go of the vine and he drops down on the other side. Now, that's really one of the best illustrative analogies that I found to really illustrate that. So you get to the point in developing insight where the sense of self is fading away, fading away, fading away, and you get right to kind of like that edge, and the mind has that desire for deliverance in it. And then it's like that conformity knowledge means the mind is now conforming to the truth. That means the sense of self is vanishing.
Mm.
And so it's like you're running and you grab that vine and your mind leaves the condition. This bank is the condition, the 5 aggregates of condition.
Yes.
It leaves that and it goes out across the river, and then letting go of the vine. I mean, if he doesn't let go of the vine, he's going to swing back to the other bank again, right?
Yes.
So he's going to let go of that vine. That's called the change of lineage.
Mhm.
And when he hits the ground, that's the experience of Sotapanna.
Yeah, but there is no ground in the unconditioned. So when he hits it, what does he hit? He hits nothing. I mean, it's a metaphor.
It's an analogy.
Yeah.
The ground of the other side is the ground of nibbana, of liberation.
Unconditioned.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But we know that there can't possibly any ground there. So that's what I love about what you said. That's why I love what you
There is
said.
a ground. The Buddha also walked on the earth after he was enlightened. He didn't deny there was some ground there. But it's in the mind. The ground is the mind. The mind is not finding a ground for the ego to hang on to. It's not that there's no ground for the feet, you're not standing on the ground. The feet are standing on the ground. It's the mind that has no longer found a ground in desire.
I see.
And the ground in the ego to stand on the I, me, and mine. That's what has vanished. That's the ground.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Understand. Thank you, Bhante, so much. You clarified something.
You're welcome. Yeah, well, that's why we have those programs and inquiring about it. That's one of the the points of developing the Dhamma is to ask questions and inquire if there's any doubts that to help. And then you, in your meditations, you try to get back to those levels and see, that's really, really true.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. Okay, friends. So if there's no other questions, I don't see any more yellow hands up. So I think we'll bring this discussion to an end. And again, if you're interested in this topic, I would have you go back and listen to some of the pre-recorded talks, or in the other books, The Breaking Through the Self-Delusion, or those attachments I sent out some time ago, maybe 6 months or a year ago, that talks about the advanced Vipassana meditation, insight knowledges, actually insight knowledges, the rereadings. Okay? So let's take a few minutes break, then we'll come back to have our yoga and the meditation, okay?
Sadhu, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay, friends, so try to stand straight. Gently close your eyes. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Feel the arms and hands hanging at the side. Relax the shoulders. Feel the clothing touching the skin of your chest and shoulders and arms. Feel the head balanced on top. Feel the eyes in the socket. Try to feel the outline of the body. And begin some deep, slow breathing. Taking 3 or 4 seconds to slowly expand your abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Drawing the air into the upper lungs and chest. Feel that expansion. Hold the air in for 2 or 3 seconds. And slowly breathe out. Feeling the last bit of air go out of the lungs. Just take a few more deep breaths like that. Developing this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we combine this breathing with these movements, doing the movement on the in-breath, holding the position for 2 or 3 seconds, keeping the air in the lungs, returning to the starting point on the output. Repeating each exercise 3 times. The whole time, just try to feel the sensation being generated by each of the movements and breathing. On the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock your fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, look at the back of your hands, stretch upwards, in the stretch. Out breath, turn the hands down, touch the top of your head. Again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, and bend back a little bit. Stretch up. Out breath, touch the top of the head. And third time, hold the upward stretch longer. Bend back a little more. Feel the sensation. And release the fingers. The out breath, arms back to the side. Close the eyes. Feel the feet pressing the floor. Just remember standing. Present moment of the body. Now on the next in breath, Push up on the toes, raise the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other and stretch up. Out breath, come back down. Use the in breath to help lift up the body. Stretch. Out. In. Out. Close the eyes. Feel the increased sensation. Subtle pulsation. And feel the outline of the standing body. Feel any body movement. Just letting go of your thought. Just let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. The sensations of the breathing body in the front of the awareness. Like looking at a mirror. Next we'll do the knee bending. On the in-breath, again push up on the toes, lift the arms up front for balance. Out-breath, bend the knees, lower down, balance on the balls of the feet. Come down in the squatting position if you can. You take a deep breath, feel the muscles in the legs pushing the body up. All the way up on the toes. In out breath down. In. Out. In. Out breath. Relax. Close the eyes. Feel the increased heartbeat of the pulsation. Clearly touching the skin. Remember standing. Standing. And next we'll do the side bending. On the in-breath, raise both arms up. Keep your fingers and arms straight, close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side. As far as you comfortably can, keeping your hands and arms parallel to each other. In-breath, lift up. And to the left, out breath. And keep alternating sides with the breathing. Out breath. In, out. Once more to each side. Out breath. Keep that outline of the body in the mind's eye. Feet pressing the floor, arms and hands at the sides, clothing touching the skin, head on top, eyes in the socket. Standing, standing, here and now, the body, present moment awareness. Where the prickling with stinging sensation, aches or pain. Now spread the feet apart, up 3 feet. And hold the arms out at the side, we'll be twisting from right to left, little lateral twisting into the spinal column. And breathe in. The out breath, twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand, going back. In breath. Let your feet turn with the body. Then go to the other side. Out breath. In breath. Continue alternating sides with the breathing. Once more to each side. Relax. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Your clothing touching the skin of your legs. The rest of the body. Feel that increased aliveness in the body. The activated life force cellular vibrations due to the oxygenated blood, electrical energy. Place the hands together at the chest. In breath, hands over the head. Out breath, hands to the chest, bend the knees, lower down, try to keep the back upright. Feel the stretch in your knees and hips. In breath all the way up. Out breath. In. Out. In. Out breath, arms back to the side. Close the eyes. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the outline of the whole body, the mind's eye, the third eye of awareness. Now bring the legs and feet closer together. We'll do the head turning from right to left. The in-breath, head to the right. Move over your right shoulder. Out breath, turn 80 degrees back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. In-breath right. Concentrate into the neck vertebrae. Feeling, imagining them listening. Out breath left. In right. Out. Left. On the in-breath, let the head stop in the middle. The eyes closed, feeling all those life force vibrations. Here's one last exercise. Sunburst backward and forward. Bending, just be careful with the back bends. Don't bend back too far the first time. Holding the palms outward. And the in-breath, raise the hands up, spread the arms apart as you bend back. Bring the arms out to the side. Look up at the ceiling. Carefully lift up. Keeping the arms out at the sides, the out breath. Hands down to the floor. Keep your legs straight. You touch the floor with your fingers and hands. Downward stretch. And begin standing up. Turn the palms outward again. In breath. Raise the arms. Hands upward and outward to the side. Head back. In breath up. Out breath, downward stretch. Standing up, third time. In breath, arms up and out to the side. Out breath. Hold the downward stretch along let the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. Standing up, bring the hands together, just the in breath. Out breath, hands to the sides. Keep the eyes closed, feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating, activated life force. You feel or imagine that activated life force permeating, saturating, suffusing the whole body, mind, system, healing, energy, present moment awareness, energy. Okay, let's mindfully come back to our seats. Get ready for sitting meditation. Dear friends, will try to sit get comfortable in your sitting position. Just try to keep your back straight, the back of your head aligned in a straight line with the spinal column. Keep your chin lifted up level with the floor. Just gently close your eyes. And start to feel the outline of the sitting body in the mind's eye. You hold that outline of the body in the mind's eye. And begin taking a few deep, slow breaths. I'm going to start the meditation with chanting Namo Buddhaya. Just listen to the sound, let the sound vibrations go through your body and mind, relaxing the body and mind in the present moment. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Keep your mind focused on the breathing. Might be a longer pause after that out breath. You feel the next in breath come in. Keep your mind focused on all the subtle movements of expanding and contracting. And count the breaths from 1 to 10. Develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing. I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that with your breathing in the mind. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Feel the brief pause. With the contracting out breath, also count to 1. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. Next in breath 2. Out breath 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5. Out 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. Out 7. In 8. Out 8. In 9. Out 9. In 10. Out 10. I'll just continue the counting. Let the breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. Continue to observe it, feel it. Imagine you're looking down through a microscope to observe some specimen. Observe the subtle expanding and contracting sensations. The abdomen, rib cage, the chest. It expands and contracts. As you try to feel the sensation as the clothing rubs against the skin of your stomach, rib cage, your chest. It expands and contracts. So keep the mind awake, alert. Feeling the 4 phases of each breath cycle, expanding in breath in the brief pause, the contracting out breath in the brief pause, over and over and over again. An ongoing connection to the present moment, this breathing body. Knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. Know it by feeling it, an alert awareness. To help stay alert and remember, you can make these brief mental notes, reminders. In, sitting, out, sitting. In, sitting. Out, sitting. Being alert for thoughts trying to sneak into the mind to steal your attention away. You have lots of thoughts. You try counting the breaths again from 1 to 10 by yourself. See if you can make it up to 10 without the mind getting lost. Get lost in thoughts, can't remember where you were counting. Start the counting again at 1. In sitting, out, sitting, an ongoing continuous connection, the present moment. Try to notice more and subtler details, sensation. In the breathing body. Breathing is going on within the larger body. I feel and notice other sensations coming and going in and through that breathing awareness. Try to maintain the outline on the body, breathing in the middle, all changing sensations. Letting the thoughts come and go in the back of the awareness, keeping sensations of the breathing body in the front of the awareness. Another unpleasant sensation, itches, stinging, biting sensations, aches or pain. Be aware of it in the mind's reaction to any painful sensation. Contemplating the five aggregates, material vibrations, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, your consciousness, thoughts of I, me, your mind, continuously just arising, changing. Developing, purifying the view of impermanence. The five aggregates. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. So many different sensations come and go. Pleasure or pain come and go. Sounds come and go. Thoughts, ideas, urges come and go. Thoughts of I, me, your mind come and go. These are all just a continuous flow, permanent flow of the five aggregates, arising and vanishing moment by moment with condition. You're not doing any of it. It happened by itself. In the past condition. This is the right view. The overcoming doubts about just letting go of that sense of I, me, your mind. It's there in the consciousness, allowing it to fade away. what thoughts arise based on sound vibration. Sambe sankara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atane bindati dukkhi esamago visuddhiyam. Dukkha patta ca nidukkha, bhaya patta ca nibbaya, sukha patta ca nisukha, ontu sabbe pipanina. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to briefly last and vanish. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Let's cultivate these thoughts of Maitri. May myself and all other living beings be well, peaceful and wise, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, free from the self-created sufferings of body and mind due to their unskillful thoughts, speech, and action. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings have the opportunity to hear the teachings of the Dhamma and to learn and practice meditation to help free their minds from confusion and suffering. May all beings be able to live peacefully and harmoniously together, understanding the ultimate interconnectedness and interdependence of all things. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. It's like a mantra reverberating throughout space. well, peaceful, and wise. Now let's invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. Do the chanting on a long out breath. Feel those vibrations in the body and mind. So take a deep breath. Mindfully place your hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep breath as you breathe in, stretch your head back. Pull the hands on the knees to arch the spine. Hold that a few moments. And lift the head up on an in-breath. On an out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. And lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Breathe out on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, this brings our evening Dhamma discussion and meditation to an end. Mindfulness should not ever really end. Try to keep practicing M&Ms every hour during the day. Remember, mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away. Okay, friends, see you again next week. Be well, safe, be mindful, have metta.
Thank you, Bhante.
And
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bhante.
abstain from intoxicants and virtuous practices. This is a blessing supreme. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you.